The coffee maker sputtered its last drops at 5:47 a.m., and Elena Rossi knew it was going to be one of those days. She stood in her cramped Brooklyn kitchen, watching the weak stream of caffeine trickle into a chipped mug, and tried to remember when life had felt manageable. Before her sister died, probably. Before she'd inherited a grief-stricken 5-year-old nephew and a mountain of debt she'd never asked for. Her phone buzzed on the counter, a text from the nanny agency. Mrs. Chen canceled. Family emergency. Can you cover the Vital interview at 9 a.m.? Upper East Side. $25. HR starting. Live-in position. Elena's thumb hovered over the screen. Live-in meant leaving Leo with Mrs. Patterson downstairs again. Live-in meant uprooting what little stability they'd built. But $25 an hour was almost double what she made at the diner, and live-in meant no rent, which meant she could finally start paying Kara's medical bills. I'll be there, she typed back. The Vitali name tickled something in her memory, but she was too tired to place it. Just another wealthy Manhattan family who needed help raising their kids while they jet-setted around the world. She'd worked for plenty of them. Some were kind, most were distant. All of them eventually let her go when their children got too attached. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. Elena finished her coffee standing up, kissed Leo's sleeping forehead, and caught the 7:15 train into Manhattan. The address led her to a limestone townhouse in the East 70s that probably cost more than she'd earn in 3 lifetimes. Wrought iron gates, pristine steps, windows that gleamed like they'd never known fingerprints. She pressed the intercom. Elena Rossi from Caring Hearts Agency, she said to the camera she spotted above the door. The gate buzzed open immediately. A man, in a dark suit, appeared at the entrance before she'd climbed half the steps. Not a butler, she realized. Security. His eyes swept over her efficiently, cataloging threat level in seconds. Miss Rossi, Mr. Vitali is expecting you. This way. The interior was exactly what she'd expected and nothing like it at the same time. Yes, there was marble. Yes, there were paintings that probably belonged in museums. But there were also toys scattered near a grand staircase. A child's jacket hung crookedly on an antique coat rack. Crayon drawings were affixed to a refrigerator visible through an archway, held up by magnets shaped like dinosaurs. Someone lived here. Really lived here. Mr. Vitali will see you in his study, the security man said, leading her down a hallway lined with photographs. Elena caught glimpses as they walked. A dark-haired little boy on a swing. The same boy building a sandcastle. The boy asleep on someone's shoulder, his face peaceful in a way that made Elena's chest ache. No mother in any of the photos. The study door was already open. The man behind the desk didn't look up immediately, and Elena used those 3 seconds to observe him. Mid-30s, she guessed. Dark hair with threads of silver at the temples that seemed too early for his age. Sharp jaw, expensive watch. The kind of face that probably made women stupid, except for the exhaustion carved into every line. When he finally looked up, his eyes were the color of espresso, and just as bitter. Miss Rossi. His voice was surprisingly gentle for someone who looked like he could buy and sell small countries. Thank you for coming on short notice. Please, sit. Elena sat in the leather chair across from his desk, spine straight, hands folded in her lap. Professional, capable, not at all intimidated by wealth or power, or the way this man's presence seemed to fill the entire room. The agency said you're looking for a live-in nanny, she began. Can you tell me about your son? Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or fear. Dante is 5. He's bright, curious, loves dinosaurs and refuses to eat anything green. A small smile. He's been through a significant loss recently. His mother passed away 8 months ago. Elena's professional composure cracked slightly. I'm so sorry. Thank you. The man, Mr. Vitali, leaned back in his chair. I've had 7 nannies in 8 months, all highly qualified. All came with impeccable references. None of them lasted more than 3 weeks. May I ask why? Dante fires them. Elena blinked. Your 5-year-old fires his nannies? He doesn't speak, Mr. Vitali said quietly. He hasn't said a word since his mother died. But he makes it very clear when he wants someone gone. Tears, tantrums, hiding, refusing food. The pediatrician says it's selective mutism triggered by trauma. Eventually, the nannies give up. They call him difficult. Impossible. Broken. The last word came out sharp, angry, protective. Elena knew that feeling. She'd heard it in her own voice every time someone called Leo troubled or damaged, because grief made him cry at unexpected moments. "What do you call him?" she asked softly. "Mr." Vitali met her eyes. Grieving. Something shifted in the room. Some unspoken understanding passed between two people who'd both watched someone they loved disappear into sorrow. "Miss Rossi, I need to be honest with you about something." He stood, walked to the window overlooking a small garden. "My work is complicated. I have enemies. Anyone who works in this house, anyone who spends time with my son, needs to understand there are risks." "What kind of work?" "The kind where I can't give you details, but I can promise you'll be protected. Security is always present. The house is monitored. No one gets near Dante without going through multiple layers of clearance." He turned to face her. "But there's danger in proximity to me. I won't lie about that." Elena should have walked away. Every instinct screamed that this was more complicated than a nanny position should be. But she thought about Leo, about the bills piling up, about the way Mr. Action Otter. Vitali's voice had cracked slightly when he called his son grieving. "Can I meet him?" she asked. "Dante?" Mr. Vitali studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Dante's room was on the 3rd floor, painted soft blue with glow in the dark stars on the ceiling. Educational posters covered one wall. Dinosaurs, the solar system, letters of the alphabet. But what caught Elena's attention was the fort. Someone had draped blankets over furniture, creating a cave-like structure in the corner. A flashlight glowed from inside. "He's been in there since breakfast, mister," Vitali said quietly. "The current nanny left yesterday. Dante hasn't spoken to me since." Elena could see small feet poking out from under the blanket, tennis shoes with dinosaur prints. One sock was green, the other blue. She knelt down several feet from the fort, making herself small, non-threatening. "Hi, Dante," she said gently. "My name's Elena. I heard you really like dinosaurs. That's pretty cool." No response. The feet didn't move. "You know what? My nephew Leo, he's obsessed with dinosaurs too. His favorite is the Ankylosaurus. He says it's because they had armor and a club tail and nobody could mess with them." She paused. "What's your favorite?" Silence. But the feet shifted slightly. "I bet it's a T-Rex. Everyone loves T-Rex. They're the cool ones, right? Big teeth, tiny arms." Elena smiled even though he couldn't see her face. "But you know what Leo told me? He said the tiny arms make T-Rex funnier. Like they couldn't scratch their own backs or give hugs. They just had to ask other dinosaurs for help." A sound from inside the fort. Not words, but something. A huff that might have been almost laughter. Elena glanced at Mr. Vitali. He was staring at the fort with an expression that broke her heart, like he was watching a miracle. "Can I tell you a secret, Dante?" Elena lowered her voice. "I'm actually a little scared of this house. It's so big and fancy. I grew up in a tiny apartment in Brooklyn where you could hear the neighbors snoring through the walls. This place makes me feel like I might break something just by breathing wrong." The blanket rustled. A pair of dark eyes peered out from a small gap. Elena's breath caught. He looked so much like his father. Same dark hair falling over his forehead. Same serious eyes that held too much understanding for someone so young. "Hi," she said softly. Dante stared at her. Not hostile, just assessing, trying to figure out if she was safe. "You don't have to talk to me," Elena continued. "I know sometimes words are hard. My nephew Leo, sometimes he can't find the right words either. When his mom, my sister, when she died, he didn't talk for 2 whole months, so I learned to listen to the quiet parts." Dante's eyes widened slightly. "We made up hand signals," Elena demonstrated. "Thumbs up means I'm okay. Thumbs down means I need space. And this," she made a heart shape with her hands, "means I love you even when the words won't come out." Dante watched her hands. His own small hand crept out from under the blanket. Slowly, carefully, he made a shape. Not a thumbs up or down, not a heart, a dinosaur, mouth open, tiny arms tucked against his chest. Elena laughed, surprised and delighted. "A T-Rex! I was right!" The corner of Dante's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Behind her, she heard Mr. Vitali make a sound, quiet but raw. "You know what?" Elena said. "If I come to work here, maybe you could teach me more dinosaur signs. I bet Leo would love to learn them too. He could use someone who speaks dinosaur." Dante studied her for another long moment. Then, slowly, he crawled out of the fort. He was small for 5, thin in the way of children who forget to eat when grief sits heavy in their stomachs. He wore a t-shirt with a stegosaurus on it and pajama pants even, though it was mid-morning. His hair stuck up in 3 different directions. He walked past Elena, straight to his father, and tugged on his sleeve. "Mister." Vitaly knelt immediately, bringing himself to eye level. "Yes, buddy?" Dante pointed at Elena. Then he made a thumbs-up sign. The sound that came from Mr. Vitaly's throat was something between a laugh and a sob. "Yeah? You like her?" Dante nodded. Then he turned to Elena and very deliberately made the heart sign with his hands. Elena felt her eyes burn. "I love you too, buddy." The paperwork took an hour. Background checks had already been run by the agency, but Mr. Vitaly's security team had their own process. Elena signed NDAs, confidentiality agreements, documents she only half understood but knew meant she was stepping into something bigger than a normal nanny position. "You can start tomorrow, mister," Vitaly said, walking her to the door. "Your room is on the same floor as Dante's. I'll have my team help move your things." "I have a nephew," Elena said. "Leo. He's 5'2", actually, same age as Dante. He stays with my neighbor during the day, but I visit every night. I need to be able to see him." "Of course. We can arrange transportation." Or, Mr. Vitaly paused. "He could visit here, if you think he'd like that. Dante doesn't have many children to play with." Elena thought about Leo's tiny apartment, his shared bedroom, the way his eyes lit up when he saw anything new. He'd love that. Then it settled. "Mister." Vitaly extended his hand. "Welcome to the family, Miss Rossi." His handshake was firm, warm, and lasted just a second too long. When Elena met his eyes, she saw something there that made her pulse quicken. Gratitude, yes. Relief, absolutely. But also something darker. Something that whispered of complications she couldn't yet imagine. "Call me Elena," she said. "Marco," he replied. "When it's just us, call me Marco." That night, Elena packed her essentials into 2 suitcases. Not much to show for. 27 years of life. Clothes, photos, Leo's favorite stuffed elephant that he'd asked her to keep safe while he stayed with Mrs. Patterson. "You're really doing this?" Mrs. Patterson asked from the doorway, watching Elena fold sweaters. "Live-in? With some rich family? The pay is good. Really good." Elena didn't mention the strange intensity in Marco Vitaly's eyes, or the way his security team moved like soldiers. "And the little boy, Dante, he needs someone." "What about Leo?" "I'll bring him on weekends, and I'll visit, every day if I can." Elena zipped the first suitcase. "This is good for us, Mrs. P. This is how I get us stable." "Mrs." Patterson hummed, unconvinced. "Just be careful, mija. Rich people, they're different. They play by different rules." Elena thought about Dante's small hand making dinosaur signs, about Marco's voice cracking when his son made the heart symbol, about the toys scattered in that pristine house and the crayon drawings on the refrigerator. "Maybe," Elena said quietly, "but grief is the same no matter how much money you have." She arrived at the Vital townhouse at 8 the next morning. The same security guard from before, she'd learned his name was Tony, greeted her at the door. "Morning, Miss Rossi." "Mister, Vitaly's in a meeting, but Dante's been asking for you." Tony's stern expression softened slightly. "Kid's been at the window for 20 minutes watching for your car." Elena's heart squeezed. "Where is he?" "Kitchen. Fair warning. He won't eat breakfast. Been refusing food since yesterday afternoon." Elena found Dante sitting at a marble island, staring at an untouched plate of scrambled eggs. He was wearing the same dinosaur pajamas from yesterday. "Hey, buddy," Elena said, sliding onto the stool next to him. "Not hungry?" Dante shook his head, not looking at her. "Yeah, I get that. Sometimes my stomach feels too tight to eat, like there's a rock in there." She pulled the plate closer, examined the eggs. "You know what, Leo? Who does when he doesn't want breakfast?" Dante glanced at her. "We play a game. We pretend the food is something else. Like, these eggs?" She pointed. "They're not eggs. They're scrambled clouds. And if you eat clouds, you can float just a little bit. Not enough that anyone notices, but enough that going upstairs doesn't feel so hard." Dante's mouth twitched. "Want to try?" Elena picked up the fork. "Just one bite of cloud. See if you float." He studied her face, looking for lies or tricks. Finding none, he slowly opened his mouth. Elena fed him the bite. "How do you feel? Lighter?" Dante considered. Then he nodded, solemn as a judge. "Knew it. Clouds always work." She loaded another bite. "This one's a storm cloud, extra fluffy. Gives you more bounce." They made it through half the plate before Marco appeared in the doorway. Elena felt him before she saw him, some shift in the air that made her spine straighten. "Sorry to interrupt," Marco said, but his eyes were fixed on his son. On the half-empty plate, on Dante's face, which held more animation than Elena suspected it had in months. "Dante, you're eating." Dante looked at his father and very deliberately took another bite of clouds. "He's doing great," Elena said. "We're just having breakfast. Storm clouds today." "Storm clouds," Marco repeated, and something in his voice made Elena's stomach flip. He wasn't mocking. He was memorizing, learning, trying to understand the language his son responded to. "Want to join us?" Elena offered. "I bet there are some clouds left." Marco hesitated. Then he crossed to the island and sat on Dante's other side. "I haven't had storm clouds in years." Dante pushed the plate toward his father. "An offering. A bridge." Marco's hand shook slightly as he took the fork. "Thank you, buddy." They ate together in the warm morning kitchen, and Elena felt the first stirrings of something she couldn't name. Not quite family, not yet, but something close, something possible, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. Elena had been in the Vitali household for exactly 9 days when she realized Marco wasn't just wealthy. He was dangerous. The signs were subtle at first. The security team that rotated shifts with military precision. The way conversations stopped when she entered rooms. The phone calls Marco took behind closed doors, his voice dropping to that lethal quiet that made even Tony straighten his posture. But it was the 10th day that made everything crystal clear. She was reading to Dante in the library, his small body tucked against her side, when shouting erupted from Marco's study. Not Marco's voice, he never shouted, but someone else's. Angry, threatening, escalating. Then silence. Too much silence. Tony appeared in the doorway, his expression neutral but his hand resting inside his jacket. "Miss Rossi, why don't you and Dante go to the garden? Beautiful day outside." "Is everything the garden?" Tony repeated, firmer now. "Please." Elena gathered Dante quickly, her heart hammering. Through the study's closed door, she heard low voices, commands being given, something heavy being moved. Dante's hand tightened in hers as they passed the study. He'd heard it too. In the garden, Elena tried to focus on the dinosaur game they'd invented, but her mind raced. What had happened in that study? Who had been shouting? And why had Tony's hand been on what was almost certainly a gun? Dante tugged her sleeve, pointing to his mouth, then to the sky. Their sign for question. "I don't know, buddy," Elena said honestly. "But your dad will make sure we're safe, okay?" Dante studied her face, then nodded. He trusted her. God, he trusted her. And she was lying here pretending she understood what was happening in this house. Marco found them an hour later. He'd changed clothes, Elena noticed. The expensive suit from this morning was gone, replaced by a simple black t-shirt and jeans. His hair was damp like he'd just showered. "Hey," he said, his voice carefully controlled. "Sorry about the noise. The business meeting got heated. Marco, can we talk?" He glanced at Dante. "Tony can watch Dante for a few minutes." They left Dante building a dinosaur fort with Tony, who, despite his intimidating exterior, made surprisingly good pterodactyl sounds. Marco led Elena to a small conservatory she hadn't discovered yet, glass walls overlooking a private courtyard. "You deserve the truth," Marco said without preamble. "I should have been completely honest from the beginning, but I was desperate. 7 nannies, Elena. 7 women couldn't handle my son, and I was running out of options." "What truth?" Marco turned to face her. And for the first time since she'd met him, she saw past the exhaustion to something harder underneath, something that had seen violence and probably committed it. "My family name isn't just Vitali. It's Vitali of the 5 families." He watched her face, gauging her reaction. "I run the largest organized crime operation in New York. Legitimate businesses, yes, but also other interests. Gambling, protection, dock operations, things I can't discuss in detail, but things you need to know exist." Elena's mouth went dry. "You're Mafia," Marco said quietly. "I'm a Mafia boss, Elena, and you're living in my house, taking care of my son, which makes you visible to people who would use you to hurt me." She should have been terrified, should have grabbed her suitcase and run back to Brooklyn. But all she could think about was Dante's small hand in hers, the way he'd started smiling again, how he'd eaten an entire waffle this morning because she'd called it a dinosaur egg grid. "The man in your study," Elena said slowly. "What happened to him?" "He threatened my business, threatened my son." Marco's jaw tightened. He's been handled. Handled how? Do you really want to know? Elena thought about that. About what handled meant in Marco's world. About the violence implied in his careful control, the darkness behind those exhausted eyes. No, she said finally. But I need to know if Dante is safe. If I'm putting Leo at risk by being here. You're safer here than anywhere in the city, Marco said with absolute certainty. My security is the best money can buy. No one touches what's mine. No one. The possessiveness in that last word made Elena's skin prickle. Not with fear, with something else entirely. What am I to you? She asked. Really? Am I just Dante's nanny? Or am I something you need to protect because I'm a liability? Marco stepped closer. Not threatening, but intense. You're the first person in 8 months who made my son eat breakfast. Who made him smile. Who taught him it's okay to communicate without words because sometimes words are too heavy. His voice dropped. You're the reason I can breathe again, Elena. So no, you're not just a nanny. You're family. And I protect my family with everything I have. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. Elena felt the weight of that statement. Family. In Marco's world, family meant loyalty, protection, obligation. It meant being tied to him in ways she couldn't fully understand yet. I need to think, she said. Take all the time you need. But Elena? Marco waited until she met his eyes. I know I'm asking a lot. Asking you to accept my world, the danger, the complications. But Dante needs you. He stopped himself. We need you. And I'll do everything in my power to keep you safe while you're under my roof. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She lay in the most comfortable bed she'd ever owned, in a room bigger than her entire Brooklyn apartment, and stared at the ceiling. A mafia boss. She was working for a literal mafia boss, but when she closed her eyes, she didn't see Marco's dangerous side. She saw him sitting, at the kitchen island, eating storm clouds with his son. Saw his face when Dante made the heart sign. Saw the way his hand had shaken with hope and fear in equal measure. He was a criminal. He was also a father. Somehow, impossibly, he was both. Elena's phone buzzed. A text from Leo, sent from Mrs. Patterson's phone. Miss you. When can I visit the big house? She smiled, typed back. Soon, bud. This weekend. Promise. Another buzz. This time from a number she didn't recognize. This is Marco. I know it's late, but thank you. For staying. For not running. Dante asked for you 3 times before bed. Use the sign language you taught him. He said Elena in signs. First time he's communicated my name in 8 months. Elena's throat tightened. She typed slowly. What sign did he use? The response came quickly. Heart. He made the heart sign and pointed at your door. Elena wiped her eyes, typed back. I made the heart sign and pointed at his door too. We're teaching him it's okay to love people even when it's scary. A long pause. Then, you're teaching me that too. Elena stared at those words for a long time. Then she turned off her phone and tried to sleep, knowing that everything had changed. She wasn't just a nanny anymore. She was something more complicated, more dangerous, more necessary. She was from Marco Vitale's family, and in his world, that meant everything. The next 2 weeks fell into a rhythm that felt almost normal. Almost. Elena woke at 6, made coffee in the enormous kitchen, and prepared breakfast for Dante. By 7, he'd shuffle in wearing different dinosaur pajamas. Marco apparently had an endless supply, and they'd start the day with adventure food. Monday was volcano oatmeal with strawberry. Lava. Tuesday brought meteor pancakes with chocolate chips. Wednesday featured swamp eggs with green peppers that Dante actually ate because they were from a swamp, not because they were vegetables. Marco joined them when he could, usually around 7:30, looking like he'd been awake for hours. Sometimes he wore suits. Sometimes he wore casual clothes that made him look younger, more approachable. Always, he watched Elena and Dante with an expression she couldn't quite read. Gratitude, certainly, but also something hungrier. Something that made her breath catch when their eyes met across the table. You're staring, Elena said one morning after Dante had run upstairs to brush his teeth. I'm observing, Marco corrected, but he smiled. There's a difference. Observing what? How you make the impossible look easy. He gestured to Dante's empty plate. 3 weeks ago, getting him to eat required negotiations, bribes, and usually ended in tears. Now he eats dinosaur eggs like it's a game. It is a game, Elena said, loading the dishwasher. Everything's easier when it's play instead of pressure. I wish I'd known that 8 months ago. Elena turned to find Marco staring at his coffee, his shoulders carrying weight she couldn't see but felt radiating from him. You were surviving, she said gently. That's all any of us can do sometimes. Survive until we're strong enough to actually live again. Marco looked up. Is that what you did? After your sister? Elena hadn't talked much about Kara. It hurt too much, even now. But something about Marco's honest exhaustion, his visible grief, made her want to share. Kara was sick for 2 years before she died, Elena said quietly. Cancer. It ate through our savings, our hope, everything. By the end, I was working 3 jobs to pay for treatments that we both knew wouldn't work. She swallowed hard. When she died, I felt guilty that part of me was relieved. Not that she was gone, but that the suffering was over. That I could stop watching her disappear piece by piece. That's not guilt, Marco said. That's love. Wanting someone's pain to end, even when it means losing them. Leo didn't understand at first. He was only 4. He kept asking when Mommy was coming home, and I had to tell him over and over that she couldn't, that heaven was permanent. Elena's voice cracked. He stopped talking for 2 months, just shut down completely. The grief counselor said it was normal, that children process differently, but I was terrified I'd lost him too. What changed? Time, patience, and dinosaurs, actually. Elena smiled through tears. One day he just started making T-Rex sounds at breakfast. No words, just roars. So I roared back, and slowly, he started talking again. Not about Kara at first, but about small things. Cereal. Cartoons. Eventually, he said her name, and we cried together. And it hurt, but it was better than the silence. Marco stood, crossed to where she was standing, and did something that surprised her. He pulled her into a hug. Not romantic, not aggressive, just solid and warm and human. I'm sorry, he said into her hair. I'm sorry you had to carry that alone. Elena let herself sink into him for just a moment. Let herself feel held, supported, less alone than she'd been in 2 years. Then Dante's footsteps thundered on the stairs, and they stepped apart quickly. But something had shifted. Some wall had cracked. By week 3, Leo's first visit was scheduled. Elena was more nervous than she wanted to admit. Her worlds were about to collide: the nephew, who was her entire heart, and the life she'd built in this strange, dangerous house. He's going to love it here, Marco assured her the night before. We've got dinosaurs, a garden, that game room on the 4th floor Dante never uses. They'll be fine. What if they don't get along? What if Dante feels threatened by another kid? Elena? Marco waited until she looked at him. Dante's been asking about Leo every day, making the question sign, pointing at pictures you've shown him. He wants a friend. He needs a friend. Leo arrived Saturday morning, wide-eyed and clutching his stuffed elephant. Mrs. Patterson dropped him off, giving Elena a long, meaningful look that said, "Be careful," without words. "Wow," Leo whispered, staring at the townhouse entrance. "Auntie E, this is like a castle. It's pretty fancy, huh?" Elena knelt down, adjusting his jacket. "Remember what we talked about? Dante doesn't use words right now. He talks with his hands and faces. That's okay?" Leo nodded seriously. "Like when I couldn't talk after Mommy. Exactly like that." They found Dante in the playroom, surrounded by every dinosaur toy known to mankind. He looked up when they entered, his dark eyes going wide. Elena held her breath. This could go so many ways. Leo walked forward slowly, the elephant tucked under one arm. He stopped a few feet from Dante and held up his free hand. Made a T-Rex mouth with his fingers. "Rawr," Leo said softly. "I'm Leo. Elena's my aunt. You must be Dante." Dante stared. Then, slowly, he made the T-Rex sign back. "Cool," Leo said. "You know dinosaur language? Elena taught me some, but I bet you know more." Dante nodded enthusiastically. He grabbed a plastic stegosaurus, held it up, made a stomping motion with his hand. "Stegosaurus," Leo translated. "They had spikes on their tails, for protection, right?" Dante made the heart sign. Leo looked at Elena. "What's that one mean?" "It means I like you," Elena said, her voice thick with emotion. Leo beamed. He made the heart sign back to Dante. "I like you too." And just like that, they were friends. Marco appeared in the doorway 20 minutes later, to find both boys building an elaborate dinosaur civilization, using every pillow in the house. Elena sat nearby, watching, her chest so full it ached. There, Marco started. Perfect together. Elena finished. Yeah. Marco sat beside her on the couch. Their shoulders touched. Neither moved away. Thank you, Marco said quietly, for bringing him here, for trusting me with someone you love. Elena watched Leo explain something complicated about Triceratops to Dante, who listened with absolute focus. You've been good to us, to me. This house, the safety, letting Leo visit you, didn't have to do any of that. Yes, I did. Marco's voice was rough. Because you've given me back my son. Because you've made this house feel like a home again instead of a mausoleum. Because... He stopped himself. Elena turned to look at him. Because what? Marco met her eyes, and the intensity there stole her breath. Because you make me remember what it feels like to want something beyond survival, to hope for things I thought died with Isabella. Marco, I know it's complicated. I know I'm asking you to exist in my world, which is dangerous and messy, and nothing like what you deserve. His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. But Elena, you've become essential, not just to Dante, to me. Elena's heart hammered. This was crossing a line. Employer and employee, mafia boss and nanny, protector and protected, they were blurring all the boundaries they should have kept solid. But when she looked at their hands, at the boys playing together, at the life they'd somehow built in 3 weeks, she couldn't find it in herself to care about lines. This is dangerous, she whispered. Everything about me is dangerous. I have Leo to think about. His safety will be absolute. I swear on my life, Elena, nothing touches him. Nothing touches you. Marco's grip tightened. Let me protect what's mine. There was that possessiveness again. That claim. Elena should have pulled away. Should have reminded him she wasn't property, wasn't his to keep. Instead, she squeezed his hand back. We should talk about this later, she said. When we're thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. But Marco released her hand. But you're right. This conversation needs time. I need privacy. Needs, Dad, Lena! Dante's voice rang out, clear as a bell. They both froze. Elena turned slowly. Dante stood in the middle of the pillow fort, his face bright with excitement, pointing at a dinosaur. He and Leo had apparently constructed from toy parts. Did he just... Elena couldn't finish. He talked. Marco breathed. He said words. Dante, realizing what he'd done, clapped his hand over his mouth. His eyes went wide with surprise. Leo jumped up and down. You talked. Dante, you talked. Elena moved first, crossing to kneel in front of Dante. Hey buddy, that was amazing. Can you say it again? Dante lowered his hand slowly. His voice came out scratchy, uncertain, but real. Dad. Lena. Marco made a sound like he'd been punched. He crossed the room in 3 strides and scooped Dante into his arms, holding him so tight Elena worried he'd squeeze the air out. I'm so proud of you, Marco said into Dante's hair. So proud, buddy. Dante's small arms wrapped around his father's neck. Missed words, he whispered. Forgot how. That's okay. You found them again. That's what matters. Elena watched them, tears streaming freely now. 3 weeks. It had taken 3 weeks of patience, play, and safety for this little boy to find his voice again. Leo tugged her sleeve. Auntie E, why are you crying? Because I'm happy, bud. She wiped her eyes. Because good things happen sometimes, and we get to see them. Marco carried Dante over, one arm still holding his son, the other reaching for Elena. She let herself be pulled into the embrace, let herself be part of this moment. Thank you, Marco said again. For this, for him, for everything. Dante squirmed between them. Can Leo stay forever? Everyone laughed, the tension breaking. Not forever, Elena said. But he can visit lots. Would you like that? Yes. Dante's voice grew stronger with each word. Best friend. Leo's my best friend. Leo beamed. You're my best friend too. That night, after Leo had gone home and Dante was asleep, Elena found Marco in his study. He was staring at nothing, a glass of whiskey untouched in his hand. You okay? She asked from the doorway. I heard my son's voice today. Marco looked up, and his eyes were red-rimmed. I thought I'd never hear it again. Thought I'd lost that part of him forever along with Isabella. Elena closed the door, crossed to sit in the chair across from his desk. You didn't lose him. He was just healing in his own way. Because of you. Because he was ready. Because he found Leo. Because he felt safe enough to try. Elena leaned forward. This isn't just about me, Marco. You created this environment. You let me do things differently. You trusted me with your son. That's what made today possible. Marco set down his glass, came around the desk. He pulled her to standing, his hands gentle on her arms. Elena, I need to tell you something, and I need you to really hear me. Her pulse quickened. Okay, I'm falling for you. The words came out rough, honest, terrifying. I know it's too soon. I know it's complicated beyond measure. But watching you with Dante, seeing the way you've brought light back into this house, hearing my son's voice because you taught him it was safe, Elena, I can't ignore what's happening between us. Marco, you don't have to say anything, not yet. I just needed you to know. His thumbs rubbed small circles on her arms. But if there's any chance you feel even a fraction of what I'm feeling, tell me, please, because I'm barely holding back as it is. Elena looked at this man who terrified half of New York, who commanded armies of loyalty, who could destroy enemies with a phone call. And all she saw was a father who'd been broken, who was learning to hope again, who looked at her like she was something precious. I feel it, she whispered. God help me, I feel it too. Marco's expression transformed. Relief, desire, joy, all crashing together. He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate, hungry, months of grief and loneliness pouring into one moment of connection. Elena kissed him back, her hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer. When they finally broke apart, both, breathing hard, Marco rested his forehead against hers. This changes everything, he said. I know. There are people who will use this against us, against Dante. We have to be careful. I know. Elena. She kissed him again, softer this time. I know all of it, Marco. The danger, the complications, the risk. And I'm choosing this anyway. Choosing you. Choosing us. Marco pulled her close, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him grounded. I'll protect you. Both of you. Leo too. With my life, I swear it. Elena believed him. Maybe that made her naive. Maybe it made her stupid. But when she closed her eyes and felt the solid warmth of him, heard the conviction in his voice, she believed every word. They stood there in his study, holding each other, knowing they'd crossed a line they couldn't uncross, and neither of them wanted to go back. The threat came on a Tuesday. Elena was making lunch when Tony burst into the kitchen, his face grim. Get Dante. Now. We're moving to the safe house. Her blood turned to ice. What's happening? The Castellano family knows about you. About your nephew. Tony was already moving, checking windows, speaking rapidly into his radio. They grabbed Leo from school 10 minutes ago. Elena's world stopped. What? Marco appeared, his face a mask of cold fury she'd never seen before. I'm handling it, but you and Dante need to be secure first. They have Leo! Elena's voice broke. Marco, they have my... I know. He grabbed her shoulders, forced her to focus. And I will get him back. Alive. Unharmed. You have my word. But I need you safe so I can work. Please, Elena. Trust me. She wanted to scream, to run out the door, to tear the city apart looking for her nephew. But she saw the lethal certainty in Marco's eyes and knew he was already 10 steps ahead. Bring him back, she whispered. I will. He kissed her forehead. I promise. The next 6 hours were the longest of Elena's life. She sat in the safe house with Dante, who'd gone silent again, sensing her terror. Tony stood guard. Other men came and went, speaking in low voices. Then her phone rang. Marco. I have him. Elena sobbed with relief. Is he hurt? Scared but unhurt. The Castellanos won't bother us again. Something dark in his voice suggested permanent solutions. We're coming to you now. When Leo ran through the door an hour later, Elena collapsed to her knees and held him so tight he squeaked. I'm okay, Auntie E. Mr. Marco saved me. He was so cool and scary and I'm sorry. Marco stood in the doorway, his suit splattered with something Elena didn't want to identify. This is my fault. I should have had better protection on him. Should have anticipated. You saved him. Elena stood, Leo in her arms. That's what matters. But she was lying. It did matter. Because this was her nephew, her baby, and he'd been taken because she'd fallen for a man whose world devoured innocence. Marco saw it in her face. Elena, I need time, she said quietly. To think. To figure out if I can do this. If I can put Leo at risk. I'll assign him permanent security. The best. He's 5 years old, Marco. He shouldn't need armed guards because his aunt fell in love with. She stopped herself, but too late. Marco's eyes widened. You love me? Elena closed her eyes. That's not the point. It's the only point. Marco crossed to her, gentle despite the violence still clinging to him. Elena, I love you too. I love what you've done for my son. I love your strength, your kindness, the way you make everything better just by existing. His voice dropped. I love you enough to let you go if that's what keeps you safe, but I'm asking you to stay. Let me prove I can protect what's mine. Dante tugged Elena's sleeve. When she looked down, he was making signs. Heart, home, family. Stay, Lena, Dante whispered. Please stay. Leo squirmed free, ran to Dante. Yeah, stay. We're best friends. That makes us family too, right? Elena looked at these boys, at Marco's desperate hope, at the life she'd built in 2 months that felt more real than anything before it. Okay, she whispered. But Marco, if anything happens to them, it won't. I swear on everything I have, it won't. Elena woke to small hands patting her face. She opened her eyes to find Dante standing beside the bed she now shared with Marco, his expression serious. What's wrong, buddy? She mumbled. Dante made a complex series of signs they'd developed together. Then he spoke, his voice clear now, used every day. Can I call you Mama? Elena's heart stopped. She sat up slowly, aware of Marco stirring beside her. What? My mama died. Dante's eyes filled with tears. But you do mama things. You make breakfast and read stories and hug me when I'm sad and love Dad. He climbed onto the bed between them. Leo said his mama died too, but he has you and that's almost the same. Can you be my almost mama? Please? Elena looked at Marco, who was watching with an expression of pure love. I would be honored, Elena whispered, pulling Dante close. I love you so much, buddy. Love you too, Mama, Dante said into her shoulder. Marco wrapped his arms around both of them, and Elena felt the last piece of her broken heart click into place. Later that morning, at breakfast with Leo visiting, Dante made his announcement official. Leo, guess what? Lena's my mama now. Leo grinned. Cool. So we're like cousins? Since she's my aunt and your mom? Best friend cousins, Dante declared. The boys ran off to play, leaving Elena and Marco alone in the kitchen. So, Marco said, pulling her into his lap. Mama, huh? Don't tease me. But she was smiling. I'm not. He kissed her temple. I'm grateful. I'm in love. And I'm thinking that title should be made official. Elena pulled back to look at him. What are you saying? Marco reached into his pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. I'm saying that you walked into my life when everything was dark, and you brought light. You gave me back my son. You gave me hope. You gave me love I thought I'd never feel again. He opened the box, revealing a simple, perfect diamond. Marry me, Elena. Not because of Dante, not because of obligation, but because I can't imagine my life without you in it. Elena looked at the ring, at Marco's face, at the life they'd built from grief and danger and impossible circumstances. Yes, she whispered. Yes, I'll marry you. The kiss was interrupted by excited shrieking from the other room. Both boys came running. Did she say yes? Dante demanded. Is Elena gonna be my real mama forever? She said yes, Marco confirmed, grinning. Yes! Both boys jumped up and down, then ran off again, yelling about needing to plan a wedding with dinosaurs. Elena laughed through tears. This is insane. 2 months ago, I was a struggling waitress. Now I'm marrying a Mafia boss and becoming a mother. Regrets? Marco asked, suddenly serious. Elena thought about everything. The danger, the complications, the night Leo was taken, and she thought her heart would stop. But she also thought about Dante's voice, about Leo's laughter, about Marco's arms around her at night, and the family they'd built from broken pieces. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one.